creates an unmet need. Example, here's a company called Medilink, which was founded by a fellow called Craig Brandon. And he realized that people were being laid off from their companies during a recession. And as you're getting laid off, you need health insurance. So he creates a company that essentially provides coverage for payment of reimbursement of medical bills for low income and particularly for unemployed people. Another example, Peter George, who founded a company called Fidelis Security System, again based on the same principle that during a recession there are a lot of people who are being laid off. And as they're being laid off, just before they leave, they stick a thumb drive into the company's computer and they can walk out with the company's security, with secure data and information technology. Well, his company started providing protection against such data breaches. And he also saw sales grow by 55%, just at the time when everybody else's sales were going down 55%. So again, smallness has the benefit of allowing you to see that rate of opportunity and follow it and build build a company. Just when everybody in the large global firmament is laying off, flattening, or shutting down. So this raises a question, which is, as small as, there's something inherently appealing about small, and it does all these wonderful things. It has all these wonderful facets. What happened to the big companies? What prevents big companies from being huge? I wonder if people have perspectives on that in this room. Why is it so difficult to follow a ray of opportunity from inside a big company? Inertia? In what sense, Pratap? And can you say a little bit more what do you mean by that?
Your existing client, your existing employee, the norms all over the built in the system. Mm-hmm. So you're aligning them, training them in a separate program or you take an initiative.
Yeah.
The whole battle is and we choke.
Right.
And then these things go like step by.
Yeah.
Don't really, even if somebody individual wants to do it, say the perspective of the whole entirety doesn't look like our type of that.
Yeah. So just to paraphrase what you just said, Pratap, that you got clients, you got an ongoing business, and you probably become big because you figured out how to scale it up, and you got a machine that's going. So to try and do anything different, even if one of your colleagues wants to do it, is taking on a huge risk, and no one wants to risk something that is kind of on the rails already. So, and that's the inertia. You stay on the rails. Let's not do anything different. Right? People recognize that. Does that resonate with those of you who had experience with big companies? Any other observations? Yeah.
I think similar what Pratap said. It's inability to break down the old structures, comfort or effort to carry on the legacy, rather than breaking down the old structures or stops the past success also.
Absolutely. And so when you say past success, it means, does it mean that the next time you have to prove something, you have to prove something that raises the bar above whatever the past is? Yeah.
Why go out of it or question it?
Yeah. So you had a point? Ambition?
Yeah, ambition kind of people are.
Yeah.
So a whole bunch of innovation around now. Our innovation 20 years ago was 1 crore, then we made 10 crores.
Yeah.
So we got 50 crores right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
At least the founder's ambition people are.
Right. So there's something about that hunger that's once you have a big plate of food in front of you, you're not going to go off it. Okay, sir.
The failure of a product for a big company can have impact on other products also. But a small startup or the failure doesn't matter that much.
Yeah.
But for a successful big company, much more is expected from a new product.
Yeah.
So there's more pressure on the people.
Yeah. So I think failure is a very critical point. In fact, in a large company, if you fail once, pretty much your career is over. And a lot of people have tried to analyze, what is it that makes Silicon Valley Silicon Valley? And you can do all kinds of things. You can bring beautiful weather. You can have great universities. You can have smart people, and people have recreated that in a number of other places. But the one thing that really makes Silicon Valley quite distinctive, and more recently, I've seen Boston beginning to kind of develop the same mindset, is that Silicon Valley you actually celebrate failure to a point. And they often say the reason why they succeed is because they're good at failure. So failure is a critical distinguishing point. So you have one more.
Yeah. As companies grow big, silos get created, and in different parts of the organization stop talking to each other, and they lose their nimble footedness.
Yeah. Absolutely. So if you think about silos, say you have developed a wonderful new product, right? And the big company's sales force, sells the company's, flagship product. So you have a new thing, and you tell them, "Wait, why don't you carry my product in your bag?" The guy says, "Wait a minute, why should I do that? My commission is driven by selling the big flagship product." So as a result, the silo wall comes down, and you might have the better product for the customer, but it's not going to reach the customer. Right? Is that an illustration?
Bhaskar, I think one of the problems that I've seen is that big companies don't look at the low-hanging fruit, which is probably the fastest way to get the product out. So they miss out for the small companies, and that's where the small companies come in and capture the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And then they're too far up there. Yeah, sir.
Yeah, I have two observations on this. One is the issue of silos. Now, the basic system of encouraging silos is path to devastation. So many of the big companies, they have a system where the head of each vertical meets under the chairperson's nose, and they interact and exchange and update everything. And there is also a lot of cross connects. Job rotations are encouraged, and many of these silos are interdependent to one another for the full product. So if your game plan is well balanced and matched, siloization will not take place. One. The second thing is about failures. The beauty is that any organization which encourages a zero failure syndrome will also never flourish with innovative ideas and new initiatives. And contrary to this is the fact that if it's a small venture, failure actually looms as a big threat, whereas a big organization can sustain the failure and still flow with the tide.
Sure. So for big companies realize that, and small companies realize that as well. And often, whether it's a large corporation or entrepreneurs or venture capitalists or other capital providers who act as mediators, they're trying to solve the problem by essentially trying to figure out, is there a home for entrepreneurship in large companies? And that also has been quite difficult, and it's been difficult because of something that I call the Goldilocks problem. And really the Goldilocks zone problem comes from the world of astronomy, where people have spent several years trying to figure out where can we find another source of a planet that can support life elsewhere in the universe. And the idea is pretty simple in terms of searching for life in the universe, which is that there are, we know, millions of stars out there, and there are planets that revolve around the stars. And presumably, there is a planet that is not too far from the star, so that it's not too cold, and it's not too close to the star, so that it's not too hot. Because if it's too far from the star, it's too cold and it will be frozen up. And if it is too close to the star, then it will be burnt, or it's too hot to support life. And I think locating innovation in a large company has a similar problem, which is that if you locate it too close to the star, which is basically the business unit that's generating revenues, the business unit will squash it. Because the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer, will put the same quarterly targets on the entrepreneurship unit as they would put on the business unit, and that will just kill the startup. If you keep it too far, you put it in a Skunkworks project in a windowless basement somewhere, on the other side of town, then you'll have the problem that the sales force will say, I don't know who you are, and there's no reason for me to do anything for you, so it gets frozen up. And this Goldilocks problem has essentially killed more fantastic ideas, small innovations in large companies than one can count.
But if that was the case, how do you explain the success of Gillette or IBM or Motorola of the world? Large companies or small innovation. For example, Gillette, the new razor, right? It's taken over the world, 70% market. How can you explain that if that was the case?
You can explain. The explanation is very simple. They found the Goldilocks zone. It's not easy to find the Goldilocks zone, right? And we'll talk a little bit about ways in which they found that space. So they have found life in the universe outside Earth, and but the problem is it is very difficult to do so. So you're expending a huge amount of energy, essentially trying to do that. And here's an example of a company that didn't find the Goldilocks zone. It's a case that I call just didn't do it. There's a case of Nike and the World Shoe Project. Anyone in this room familiar with the World Shoe Project? Okay, so the World Shoe Project was a brainchild of Phil Knight, the CEO of Nike, back in the late 90s. And at that time, he and Nike itself, the senior management of Nike, were very visionary in recognizing that China was going to be the biggest business and economic story of the century to come. And their idea was that if we could produce a product that was marketable to this emerging middle class, they saw the writing on the wall. They said, here's a middle class that's going to be demanding all kinds of consumer products. If we could take a $100 Nike shoe, the same shoe that was being marketed by people like Michael Jordan, the basketball star, strip it down, to get it down to a price point that would be affordable for 40-50% of the emerging middle class. We'd have a huge market. We put shoes on Chinese consumers, and we basically transform the athletic footwear market. Sounds a lot like something called the Nano, except that it wasn't shoes. And they did exactly what the Nano has done recently in automotive industry. They essentially started with a price point, and they worked backwards. They reverse engineered every single process, manufacturing and then sourcing and other processes to get down to that price point, and they produced something called the World Shoe. Well, they were brilliant in design of the innovation in terms of product, but they completely failed once they had that product in hand, because they did not change any part of their system. It was exactly this unit was required to meet the same targets as the $100 shoe unit. This unit did not have its own showrooms. It didn't have its own sales force. So if a salesperson has a $100 Nike shoe and a cheapo, World Shoe Project shoe, guess which one he's going to try and push? It's going to be the $100 shoe, because that's what my commission depends on. If I'm, a relatively poor or low middle class Chinese consumer, I see the World Shoe and the Michael Jordan shoe next to each other. I know I can't afford the Michael Jordan shoe, but the World Shoe looks so terrible next to it. I may not be able to afford it, but I don't want to feel bad about myself. So they wouldn't buy the World Shoe either. So the World Shoe Project, guess how many people are wearing World Shoes today? 0. The World Shoe Project was shut down. Now, we'll come back to the Tata Nano sometime later in this discussion, but there's a model here in terms of what smallness smallness has its limits, and you could come up with small ideas. You could come up with a small product. You could come up with a small innovation. You could exquisitely design it in a vacuum. But when you try to place it within the context of a large organization, you run into the problem that there isn't a zone where it's not too hot and not too cold. Now, to Billa's question, how do some large companies do manage to produce innovative products and do small things? And we have plenty of examples. Gillette is certainly one of them. Here's an example from closer to home. This is a company that we all know and love. Cadbury's. Cadbury's is chocolate is Cadbury's as far as India is concerned. Do you know that India is actually the home of one of the earliest product innovations, which radically changed the product development and innovation process at Cadbury's through a product that is this one. So, if you're a chocolate supplier in a hot country, you're in a very difficult business because your product melts. Your product melts at the starting point of the chain, and there is no cold chain, so it melts in distribution, it melts at the retail point. So product managers at Cadbury's scratched their heads for a long time, and they of course had lots of problems in addition to chocolate melting. They had worms in their product and so on. They kind of said, why don't we solve the problem by putting, instead of trying to sell chocolate, why don't we try and sell melted chocolate? And that's what they did. They produced this product. And for the first time, something was accepted in this imperial company from a very small market. So normally, the way product development happens in this very large organization is that it's developed in the large market, but starts out in London and then is tested in Western Europe, the UK and Western Europe, and then it makes its way through the rest of the global system. And what basically Cadbury's did was it discovered that there are some unusual conditions in a very small market, which leads to an idea about a new product. And this small market is sufficiently removed from their core markets that they could let this product group go off and build their own thing. So they created this product, and now they're taking this product to other markets. They certainly have taken it to Asia, and they're in the process of taking it back to Western Europe. Essentially a first for an imperial company. So there are many ways in which small has made its way in large companies. Now that I've sort of hit you over the head many times over as to why I think I like small, and why there are different ways in which small is both profound and transformational. Let me talk a little bit about why I believe that the next big thing, which is something that we as entrepreneurs and innovators always care about, the next big thing is really going to be either small or somebody who's the god of small things. But the word small is always going to be part of it. And the reason for that is I think there are some fundamental structural trends that are pointing towards smallness as being at the core of the next generation of opportunities. And if you look at these trends, coming at it both from the demand side and from the supply side, it's at least to my mind, is a pretty compelling picture. So here's one. It's on the demand side. The notion of consumers being more empowered. For any number of reasons. They're more empowered because they suddenly have access to information. They have access to media. They have access to each other. They have the ability to communicate that through the media and through other mechanisms to people who come up with ideas. There is a greater demand for more personalization. Whatever it is, personalization of books, personalization of advertisements, personalization of medicine, personalization of my airplane seat. The second one is just look around you, and it's very clear. We have the single biggest transformation in the recent times is the emergence of middle class in India, China, Brazil, Nigeria, and a whole host of countries. And each one of these growing middle class segments is looking for products that have aspects that are small in some way, because we either live in slightly smaller homes, or we have to share with more people, or we are constrained in a number of different ways. We're constrained by weather, we're constrained by a variety of factors. So the second trend also contributes to smallness. The third is something that has happened more recently, which is the financial crisis has really created a sense of frugality. Not just in the developing world, which has always had a long history of frugality, but even in the developed world, where in the United States you can't buy a Hummer anymore, where the country where people felt it was a birthright to drive really big cars. Suddenly you start seeing the cars becoming a whole lot smaller. The fact that as consumers, our attention is being fragmented by so many different sources that are grabbing our mind share. Whether it is the fact that we have 50 news channels to watch, or the fact that we don't even watch news channels anymore. Some of us have iPads, some of us have phones.